We are here because Daniel Holden was convicted of murder and sentenced to death.
5 times during his incarceration, Mr. Holden has been scheduled to die. But each time, his execution was stayed through appeal.
After serving nearly 20 years on death row for rape and murder, new DNA evidence calls the man's conviction into question.
Remember, just because he's getting out doesn't mean this thing is over yet.
Hello, Daniel.
The question is how to put his life back together.
Around here, Mom, I want to see Daniel dead.
You know, we haven't made love since Daniel got out.
What do you mean?
I mean, there were variables inside, but it wasn't like out here when everything is out of the ordinary. It can be too much sometimes, you know?
Dance between guilt and innocence. Rectify, Thursday night at 9:30 on ViuTV6.
Good evening, I'm Diane in Hong Kong, and welcome to ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Talks between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin steal the limelight as G20 leaders struggle to narrow differences with the US. Hong Kongers get a chance to board China's first ever aircraft carrier, and that's not the only military display on show. Government to release controversial co-location arrangement details for the Express Rail link amid concerns over Hong Kong's autonomy. Now, on day 2 of the G20 summit in Hamburg, officials are working hard to narrow differences in views to finalize a communique that will be issued at the end of the day. Sources say there is a critical mass of countries objecting to the United States' push to reference fossil fuels in the document. Meanwhile, World Bank launched at the summit a public-private loan program to support women entrepreneurs in developing countries. It'll work with governments on improving laws stifling women entrepreneurs and push financial institutions to provide equity to the companies they create. The project is headed by Ivanka Trump, the U.S. president's daughter.
Wherever you go across the globe, you hear the same thing from female entrepreneurs, which is that they have a unique challenge accessing capital. There's right now a gender credit deficit that is roughly $300 billion annually. So really working to alleviate the challenges accessing capital in the developing world is a core mission of this facility, but also creating mentorship opportunities and networking opportunities for these female entrepreneurs is going to be critically important as well.
The focus of the summit in Hamburg so far, though, has been none other than the eagerly awaited meeting between the U.S. and Russian presidents yesterday. The talks, which spanned more than 2 hours, is said to have left Vladimir Putin with a big political win.
It's an honor to be with you.
All eyes were on this moment. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin holding a meeting in person for the first time since the U.S. president took office on the sidelines of the G20 summit. According to U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Trump opened the talks by pressing Putin on allegations of Russian meddling in last year's U.S. presidential election. Allegations Putin denied.
What the two presidents, I think rightly, focused on is how do we move forward? How do we move forward from here? Because it's not clear to me that we will ever come to some agreed upon resolution of that question between the two nations. So the question is, what do we do now?
Tillerson said the two leaders had differing views on how to deal with North Korea's weapons program, but the pair was said to have such positive chemistry that the meeting went on for more than 2 hours. Putin came away from the talks showing he's broken the isolation policy imposed by previous U.S. administrations.
Putin is now meeting for more than 2 hours with the leader of the free world, with the President of the United States, on the margins of a meeting with more than a dozen other major world leaders in the richest and most powerful country in Europe, in Germany. So that doesn't seem very isolated. I would call that a big political win for Putin.
It's unclear how much approval the Russian leader has from German Chancellor Angela Merkel, though, who was caught rolling her eyes at him as they spoke.
Guten Tag.
At the end of the first day, Merkel said nearly all G20 leaders agreed on the need for free and fair trade, but admitted some differences of opinion meant major challenges in drafting the summit's final communique. This as the US president's protectionist stance and push for fossil fuels isolate the country from most other member states. Outside on the streets of Hamburg, anti-capitalist protests that turned violent left the city in disarray. Rioters clashed with police overnight, while looters ransacked supermarkets and shops. Also in talks were the Russian president and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who discussed the latest on the Syrian crisis earlier today. This follows a new Syrian ceasefire and de-escalation agreement between the US, Russia and Jordan. The two presidents praised the joint efforts put into the peace process, with the deal to take effect starting tomorrow. It's been welcomed by other world leaders as well, though some remain skeptical about whether or not it would be effective. Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping urged Japan to learn from history to ensure Sino-Japanese relations run in the, quote, right direction. In talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on the sidelines of G20, Xi stressed China won't compromise on issues surrounding Taiwan and the two countries' shared history. According to state media, the Chinese president called on Abe to work together on boosting cooperation, noting that this year marks 45 years since the two sides normalized diplomatic relations. So the latest on the condition of Chinese dissident Liu Xiaobo, the American and German medical experts invited over to treat him have reportedly fully endorsed a treatment that's been used on the bedridden dissident. This was according to the hospital, which also said the doctors confirmed Liu's liver cancer is in the final stages. He will undergo another MRI scan to determine whether other treatments can be used to improve his situation. Meanwhile, one of Liu's friends revealed that the activist's two brothers have arrived in Shenyang, where Liu is being treated, and that they're being closely watched by authorities. The friend himself has refused to disclose more after receiving a warning from authorities. Now, here in Hong Kong, locals got their chance to board the Liaoning, China's first aircraft carrier that arrived in local waters yesterday. Those who secured tickets earlier were picked up from Pier number 10 in Central. They were only allowed to stay on board for an hour, though. Long lines were seen outside the PLA's garrison on Ong Shun Chau as well. It's also open to the public this weekend.
They are handsome. They are nice and handsome.
We are part of China, so we need to learn more about China stuff. Yeah, Chinese, yeah, army, Chinese army thing.
Well, the government has once again played down concerns about the co-location arrangement for the high-speed rail link, which is expected to come into service next year. Speaking on radio earlier, Secretary for Justice Rimsky-Yoon said the arrangement is in line with the basic law. He added that details would be revealed soon. The co-location of customs, immigration and quarantine facilities at the West Kowloon terminus means mainland authorities would be allowed to enforce mainland laws and regulations within Hong Kong territory. It sparked concern about the city's autonomy.
The legal issues are not the most difficult thing to deal with for this project. Political issues and public perception are the tougher issues to tackle. This includes the issue of mutual trust. We have looked at the project from different perspectives, and we find that the co-location plan is the most effective arrangement for the new rail link.
Right, coming up next, the latest from the world of business. Let's kick things off with overnight market action on Wall Street. U.S. stocks rose on Friday, lifting the major indices into positive territory for the week. The Dow Jones added 0.4%, while the S&P 500 jumped 0.6%. Gains in tech shares helped lift the Nasdaq by just over 1%. The advance comes after Labor Department data showed the economy added 222,000 jobs last month, far exceeding expectations for a 179,000 gain. It puts the Fed on track to raise interest rates once more this year, but muted wage growth may give the central bank room to pause if necessary.
When you peel it back, manufacturing jobs were listless. Service jobs, lower paying jobs were the majority of it. And wage growth is rather benign at roughly about a little less than 2%. So we believe that the economy overall is doing okay.
Well, Wall Street's advance came also after Thursday's big sell-off, but a dip in oil prices capped any further gains. That says global crude inventories continue to pressure the market. Fred Katayama reports.
Oil prices fell Friday after data showed U.S. production rose last week and OPEC exports hit a 2017 high. Energy stocks went along for the ride, including conventional producers such as Chevron and ExxonMobil and shale drillers like Chesapeake, Devon, and Oasis. For the year, oil prices have fallen more than 16%. Andrew LeBeau of Commodity Research Group says it's possible to see West Texas Intermediate at $50 a barrel in the third quarter of 2017, but under one condition.
The market needs to see inventories drawing down. This has been a key determinant for OPEC. They've talked about inventories getting down to the 5-year average. They're nowhere near the 5-year average. In fact, according to the IEA, they're 300 million or almost 300 million above the 5-year average. So the market has a ways to go to start drawing inventory. And once it does, I think that will give the market a little bit more confidence that a price recovery could be very close.
On Thursday, the Energy Information Administration released data that showed U.S. crude production rose markedly. The government agency also said U.S. crude inventories in the last week of June fell to its lowest level since January. OPEC meets at the end of July in Russia. Some analysts say it could make a recommendation to stem oil production.
Well, with oil prices on the slide, there might not be quite as much demand for alternative fuels, but one form of bioenergy certainly has the car industry talking following a successful test drive. Matthew Stock with this story.
The phrase "one for the road" could soon take on a whole new meaning. This car is being filled with a biofuel made from the unwanted residue of whiskey production. It's the first time Edinburgh-based Celtic Renewables have tested their petrol and diesel alternative, called biobutanol. The car's engine hasn't been modified. Instead, the company has readapted a century-old fermentation process that was abandoned in the era of cheap gasoline.
It's quite fitting to use a Ford for this historic drive, as the original Model T Ford ran on biofuel, and the fermentation that we've developed to put the fuel in this car is 100 years old, proven at large scale, and we're simply going back to the past to bring the whole technology into a modern context.
The team first made biobutanol in their lab at Edinburgh Napier University. It's made from waste barley kernels known as draff, which is combined with pot ale, a yeasty liquid left over after distillation. The Scottish malt whisky industry produces some 50,000 tonnes of draff and 2 billion litres of pot ale each year.
In making our fuel from the residues of the Scottish malt whisky industry, we can provide both an economic and environmental sustainability to the industry and grow a brand new sustainable industry of scale in this country that we can export all over the world.
The company recently